actually freaking myself out playing that track. I've never done that live before. I'm quite ashamed of myself.
That's the Zach I know.
What's that? That's the Zach you know. Yeah, that's me and my buddies sort of. I'm playing a drum phrase and he's kind of humorously scatting it back at me. And boy, I wish he was here live. We could have done that. We're working up a live rendition of that tune. The drums and voice. And that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I like playing drums to stuff that feels like. Let me show you what I mean. There's two ways that I like to play. One way is metric, where every sort of fill would sort of be something that's familiar to, or familiar to notation, you know, or it could be notated like this. Or a little looser. Now, they both kind of make rhythmical sense, and they're both done over a pulse that I'm hearing in my head that's a quarter note either way, but some are a little more staying with the common subdivisions to that pulse, others are kind of phrasing loosely, and I like to do both. And mainly jazz drummers have been doing that or playing really sort of like free to interpretation for many, many years. It hasn't really approached the more contemporary scene as much, but I see no reason why it can't. And kind of an interesting thing to have things that are sort of static rhythmically in the electronic sense, but playing loosely over that, over like that track which was in metronomic time, but to phrase loosely over that sometimes gives that metronomic thing more of a human sway to it. So I like to mess around with that as well. Any other questions that come about? Yes?
If you were to write that, would that be breakups of 5s and 7s over the bar line?
Okay. That's exactly what I was talking about 10 minutes ago. He asked if I were to write that out, would that be groupings of 5s or 7s over the bar line? If it is, I certainly don't know. But groups of 5s and 7s, let me show you what that is. And I haven't done this in a while. At one point I was really into this and understood it a lot more. But if groups of 5, meaning septuplets or cross-rhythmic 5s, there's a difference. Septuplets, if you have a quarter note pulse, 5 notes to the quarter. So I can go. That's groups of 5, groups of 5s, septuplets, phrased. Septuplets phrased in groups of 4, actually, is what that is. If you want to phrase 16th notes in groups of 5, you have your 16th notes. And that's like, if you're going. That's groups of 5s and 16th notes. Septuplets, I mean, what am I talking septuplets? Quintuplets. Pardon me. It's been a long drive. Quintuplets. I'm sorry. Everything I said septuplets to, let's go quintuplets. He's videotaping just for the video. Okay, quintuplets. If I were to do that as quintuplets, it would sound like this. That's group 5 notes to the quarter. This falling down the stairs thing is neither one of those. It's hearing a quarter note pulse and sort of just independently hearing random notes over it. Here's what I'm talking about. If I'm going like this. That's just taking something and speeding up that same phrase over the same pulse. Like I said, that could be notated just as fireworks can, but it'll be extremely difficult and time-consuming to bother with. I just view it as, here's my pulse, and I'm going to decide to play that against it. What that is, as far as the rhythmic values of each note, I could not tell you that. And that doesn't make it invalid, it just makes it coming from a place, you know, they often said you can't transcribe Elvin Jones's phrases. Sure, you could, but it would be, it almost defeats the purpose of what he's trying to do, which is to hear a phrase and bend the time and phrase loosely. So I'm thinking more like that when I play. The Chuck Loeb stuff that he referred to, I used to play very metrically, more so on that, because a lot of stuff was to sequencers, and all the phrases I used to play were more in sync, such as even phrases that were just divided up, but they were still metrically constant and not so stuttering, you know?
I much like the way Prince, the Two Drake Metal.
Okay.
Same example.
What, any tune that you refer to, or?
All of them.
All of them. All right, so let's start with tune number one, which, that again was a lot more metric. The stuff on this Bluth CD is a combination of metric and really out there. And what we tried to do with this, the whole CD, see, even this goes for any instrument, not just drums. A lot of horn players, a lot of times when they just want to phrase a melody, they see a tune to play on a chart, and the rhythms of those tunes are very much open for interpretation. They try to get more personal with it and slur the notes around and sort of bend the melody and make a personal phrase. And I find that a lot of times when they solo over things, they're just like going back to this metric, da 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 da. So we, for this album, told a lot of guys what we wanted and got them to, on all instruments, to play the way I'm describing now, which is a more, let the time exist and play around it and play off of it. And I haven't heard a lot of records like that where guys are doing that. So I thought that this was a first to hear a constant theme of that running through this particular CD that I'm talking about. And that's a lot of stuff I've been exploring. The jungle stuff, on the other hand, is not quite that. That's going back to the metric and lay it all there. So that's kind of a contradiction of the stuff I just played. But that's the flip side of that. So that's where my metric stuff will come back into play, where I have to sound more precise with everything. Okay. Anything else come to mind?
Out of curiosity, what's your educational background?
My educational background? 5th grade was about it. No. I studied at a school called the Drummers Collective in New York. You're talking musical background. Yeah, I didn't go to any college for music. I went to a place called the Drummers Collective in New York and studied seriously until I was about 14 years old, and then on and off with little lessons here and there for a few years after. But I started to work professionally pretty regularly at 16 years old, 16, 17. So I was contemplating going to college, not even for music, but just college in general. And everyone's like, if you want your musical career to just keep going steady, don't do that. So I didn't do that. And they all lied. My musical career didn't go. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I just kind of stopped taking lessons at 14 or 15. Because what I wanted to do at that time, I felt I could learn on my own a little bit more by going to clubs and hearing guys play. And it's not to say it's not good to take lessons, because it's always good, but if you don't balance that with like trying to rely on your own talent, your own ear, to go check something out for yourself and figure it out, the understanding doesn't really stay with you. I mean, and people say to learn a foreign language, it's best to go to that country and just absorb yourself, you know, around this. Same thing with learning an instrument, I believe. It's like, what's happening, and I mean, I love the fact that there's a lot of music videos out there with drummers, but what ends up happening is everybody gets those same materials to work with, and it's all kind of laid out on a platter for everybody. To just, okay, here's what I played on this tune, that tune, and there's no searching and there's no discovering on your own. You go and hear something live, and you might take something from it, and a guy who's also there watching the same thing takes something totally different from it. But these videos and stuff are so like, well, here's this, here's that, and you're almost left, you don't have to make any decisions yourself. You just kind of like, it's just fed to you pretty easily, and I think that could backfire in developing one style.
Warehouse
You know?
164.
Like this guy, I know he didn't hear a tape of other guys doing that job. I could just tell. He's got a feel for it. I'm sure he went to other stores, but he never got videos or anything. I'll tell you that. But you know what I mean. I think it's a good thing to sort of go out on your own and say, okay, no one's showing me that I have to learn this or telling me, but I like this, and I'm going to decide. Go for obscure things. Don't just say, okay, I want to hear Dennis Chambers. I'll buy Dennis Chambers video on the quintessential Dennis Chambers album, which I don't even know what that would be, but they're all really good. But you know what I mean. It's like go out and try to like get something that's going an extra step, rather than just being content with. I knew guys who would open up Modern Drummer for transcriptions, and they wouldn't even have heard the record that they're referring to. They just say, oh, it's a drum solo, and this guy played it, must be good. And they're not even kind of like exploring what that was. They're just looking at the phrases, which half the time are wrong in that magazine, or used to be anyway. And they're playing this stuff, and I'm like, hey, I know that that's not right, because I checked this solo out 8 billion times with my ears with the slowdown machine, and every which way. And it's not just like glanced upon a Modern Drummer, okay, triplet into this. I mean, In fact, they did an article a couple of years ago where I wrote in something, and I wrote it wrong. And no one told me it was. I looked at it and I discovered, holy, I made a mistake on that. But, a lot of people read the article, but no one said, that third example in that playing for the rate thing, that's wrong. Like there's too many notes in that bar. If you look real closely, there was dotted notes or that shouldn't have been dotted or something got wrong. But I sent it in that way. I did it real quick on my computer and I messed it up. But no one came up to me and noticed that, and I thought that was kind of scary because they just accepted it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's always good to not to be skeptical, but it's always make sure that you're getting it right. And with these things of Modern Drummer, always listen. At least listen to why the drummer played it. Listen to the tune it's coming from. So go that extra distance whenever possible, because I think it'll give you a little more of an edge on guys who don't do that. Like anything else, I guess. Anybody else here? Everyone's shaking their head now. Come on, yeah.
What's the size of the snare you're playing?
It's a 10-inch drum.
Keyboards 149.
10-inch.
149, please.
And I'm definitely going to get into trying to play a 10, an 8, and a 12. They make an 8-inch drum, Steve Jordan drum, and they make a 12 of this kind as well. And a lot of this jungle music uses multiple snare hits, again, because it's so easy to just sample 3 snare drums for this music and program 3 snare drums. But when I've done gigs and I've used 2 snare drums, it really highlights, it gives you another voice to go to and another level to bring it to. So yeah, 2 snare drums will be in order. But this is a 10-inch by, I guess, 4. Doesn't sound bad, does it? Sounds okay.
Sounds like a piccolo, pretty much.
Sounds like a piccolo.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. I'm going to have to experiment with it. I've never used a lot of piccolos, but if it does, I might start, because this is a hard surface to hit. It's too small, but it gets the sound I want. But it's the same depth as a piccolo, I guess. But then again, when you mic things in EQ them, you can do anything you want to stuff. But yeah, 10-inch drum.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What was the last style of music that you just played? What was it? What we call? What category?
You name it. Your guess is as good as mine. Drum laughing. Laughing music. No, the thing I just played was in 2 parts, and neither of them I could label. The first thing I kind of would describe as fusion-y techno jungle, just to put a label to it. And the second one I would describe as kind of a hip-hoppy feel, then kind of done whatever I wanted to do with it.
Let me, do the bass help you out some with your timing when you go into your own little thing a lot of times?
I'm relying heavily on the bass on that track, because where I was doing a lot of those solos, there was no other pulse but the bass.
But the bass.
And I know the bass line of this tune good enough to know where it's being placed, and to use that as an anchor, definitely, and the chords and all that stuff. Good question. When you play stuff, especially when you do this stuff with a band and there's no sequences, really rely on those guys. Don't always feel you have to generate the pulse. They're musicians too, and they have a time feel. And if you shut yourself off to like those other elements, you're not doing yourself a favor. You're making it only harder on yourself. So, but that's a good question. It's the best question of the clinic. He gets a pin. Yeah,
Heard that.
yeah. That's a very musical question. I like that. Yeah, so that's the deal. Well, I'm going to play one more tune to finish up, and this one, again, would be considered in the hip-hoppy type vein. I'll play one more that kind of highlights these, and I want to definitely thank Zildjian for bringing me here, and as well Shure microphones, which are making it so that you can hear this really loud and it hurts everybody's ears. You can thank them for that. Now, Shure microphones, that it really is a must, I think, to have drums mic'd when playing to this stuff, because you want to get a sound that sort of has that sort of process thing. And I know a few times I've tried to play this music where the drums weren't mic'd and it just doesn't sound great. So basically, yeah, you got to buy yourself these cymbals, you got to buy yourself all these microphones, samplers, keyboards, you know, I'll take loans out for $35,000 that we can never repay, and something like that. Or you can buy one of those for $25,000 or whatever. No, $36.99. So I'm going to give this last tune a whirl. And what's that? Dual channel? No. And I want to just thank everyone for coming. Thanks a lot.
Very good.